socials as a QR code.
Is that the Discord?
Which one? The one on the right. Yeah, the one on the right is a link tree to like our Discord, Facebook, Instagram, all that. Yeah.
I'm in the Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, just give us a couple minutes. We're gonna, so essentially this is gonna be the rundown. We are just gonna be having waiting a couple minutes just for more people to trickle in. Then we'll just be making some announcements about our club. And then after that, we'll pretty much just hand it off to you to take the reins.
Sounds good.
That's good. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much once again for being at our CSS meeting. We really do appreciate it. And yeah.
I know you're a busy man.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
thank you.
All right. But yeah, do that if you can. And then to everyone that's on Zoom. Yeah, let me do this. Where is our?
Oh, this is cold. Why didn't you get like most?
But it's free.
Uh,
Do they have?
They had backwards.
Missed it.
You're not really sure. You're just touching.
All right, so to everyone on Zoom, I'm gonna post a sign-in sheet. So if you can, just please sign in. If you. All right, so yeah, I just posted the sign-in sheet, so yeah, please sign in if you can. Let's see how many people we have. 11. Just get our announcements ready.
Going back to the fourth edition.
Anybody over there got an actor or something? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's like pipes. Also, to those that are on our Zoom. Oops, let me just do this. Here's our link tree with all of our socials and links to.
We have one left.
Oops. So yeah, I just posted the sign-in sheet, also our link tree if you guys, need to join our socials or follow us. And it also has the links to all of our appropriate announcements that I'll actually make right now. So our first announcement I want to make is our t-shirt interest form, right? So if people are interested in getting a t-shirt, we do have an interest form. There's some pretty nice shirts. It has a really nice design. It was created by Kayla, so our vice president. So I'll go ahead and post this in the chat. It's also on our link tree if you want to check that out. Right. Next announcement is our CSS project initiative, right? So essentially, right, I advertised this in the beginning of the year if you guys have been following, but this is essentially a student-led project, right? Led by a student tech lead themselves, Stephen Chang. He's very talented, has a nice resume. He wants to be managing a web development project, wants to recruit for front-end and back-end developers. So if you are interested, here, I'll post the whole announcement in the Zoom chat. Is also on our link tree once again, right? That's where you'll find everything, and also on our socials. Wherever you can find our announcements, right? It will be there. I guarantee you that. Okay, cool. So I think those are most of our announcements that we had. So we can go ahead and get into the presentation. So let me switch this over. I'll bring this over here. And then I'll put this in full screen. So yeah, so we have with us, James. So is it James or Jimmy?
I go by either. It's normally James, and then sometimes when I do meetings at work and we got a bunch of Jameses, so then there I go Jimmy, just because it's like, hey, this makes it easier.
All good.
So
Yeah.
normally James, but then I forget my Zoom sometimes says Jimmy, so I forget about that.
It's all good. But yeah, so thank you very much for coming to our meeting. We really do appreciate it. I know we are all interested in what you have to talk about with us today. So I'll allow you to introduce yourselves, and you go ahead and you have the reins.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I got some slides, so I thought I would just help kind of walk through. Let me bring that up, and it always, give me a second. It always takes a minute with Zoom and the screen, so it's not so large. Let me try this again. So I think if I do share, and then that, and then if I do, all right, so that should be working. So now, do you just see the CalPy slides or CalPy?
Yeah, we see it.
The orange side? Okay, cool. Yeah, I have a bigger screen, and when you try to do the share thing, it like makes it really small on the other screen. So, anyways, small technical glitch, but thank you everybody. It's my James Green. I am VP Engineering at Rapid7. I thought I'd just do a quick little introduction myself, and then talk a little bit about kind of a little background myself, and then kind of my journey through my career and some lessons learned throughout, and then. I thought towards the end, depending on time, we can get a little bit into cybersecurity and some of the things, just a little bit about Rapid7 and what we do, and then some of the, some of what we see across the kind of the security landscape. So yeah, about myself. So I'm based out of Los Angeles. I'm in the San Fernando Valley. I lead our cloud security product lines. So which is kind of we've done a number of acquisitions, and so we kind of it's a joining of 2 acquisitions plus some organic growth that we've done inside Rapid7. Right now, lead about a team about 80 plus across the various locations. So it's been a good amount of time working with folks in Washington, D.C. and Tel Aviv primarily, and then got smaller teams in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Belfast, Northern Ireland, Stockholm. And then what I do, right? Obviously, as a leader of an engineering, I do a lot of management on the engineering side and help kind of grow both developers, grow our leaders. Also help kind of plan and execute our strategy for the product. And then we say go to market. So this is like, are you doing marketing? How are you doing sales? Are you doing what's called like product-led growth or sales-led growth? How are you getting new customers, and how do you retain those customers? I do a lot kind of in what we call our acquisition strategy. So identifying where, when we have we're trying to serve our customers' needs, and there's some newer need or something that we're not solving today, is do we want to call it like build? Do we want to build that capability? Do we want to partner with some existing tool or company, or do we want to acquire that technology and to fill that gap? And then I also spent a lot of time working primarily with our within the Fortune 100, some of our larger customers, where we're not just selling them a product, but we're really kind of selling our strategy as a company. They're making a sizable investment. These like your 7-figure deals, and they're not looking just for someone that not a transaction, but looking for, hey, where do we invest and send our to spend all this money, and we want to know that we're investing and wanting, it's more of a partnership, knowing that you're going to be there not just today, but as we evolve as an organization. You're a security company that's gonna evolve with us. So a little about myself. So I'm born and raised in San Fernando Valley, and grew up in Chatsworth area. I went to school, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. So kind of your sister brother school. Major in computer science. And then after took a first job, was down in San Diego. So I've been able to be pretty blessed living in Los Angeles area, San Luis Obispo, and then down in San Diego. And so first place in San Diego was a company, General Atomics Aeronautical Systems. At that time, we were kind of a startup. So we had about 200 employees. And we would manufacture, most of that was, a lot of that was manufacturing. So it was a company that was we call vertically integrated. We built the bolts, the the screws, everything that went on that aircraft. And it was a really interesting experience because and with the like kind of defense industry, it really is not the greatest of industries, in that you got a product, and a lot of times what happens, you got your Northrop Grumman, your Boeing, things like that, is they have some need, and they like, hey, can you build this? And what'll happen is, sure, here's like a plan for how we would build it. Let's just say an aircraft. Give us lots of money to build the first one, and we'll do that over like a 20-year time period. And well, a lot of times what happens is by the time something actually meets the original requirements, it's obsolete. I probably read about this. And General Thomas, the approach is kind of brought Agile into the security space, which was all the original aircraft were all built on our own dime. So we built every new aircraft that we built was always built on our own dime. So we would innovate ourselves, and then kind of propose to different government organizations or even just technology organizations. Hey, we have this product that it meets 5 of the 10 requirements that you have, and we'll add those next ones later. And it was kind of crazy. We were in the beginning, we couldn't get any deals because we had no name, and there's so much politics and involved in these things. And we would have 75% of the requirements met on day one against say a competitor that had 0. We would say we would offer it for like 1/10 the cost and 1/10 the time, and we still wouldn't get the contracts. And so we were struggling for a while, and then once we got our first contract, it kind of snowballed from there, and we just got more and more, and the company blew up significantly. So when I joined, there's about 200 of us. We had, single millions in revenue. When I left, we had about 7,500 people and several billion in revenue. So it was a super kind of exciting place in that a lot of growth. We were highly aspirational as a company. We would, I remember we would kind of, to get our first deals, we would promise things that even we were like, how the hell are we going to do that? Like, there's no way, like what they're asking for, especially in the time frame that was wanted. And we always seemed to come through. It was kind of a pretty amazing experience. So some things I worked on: automatic takeoff and landing. So at the time they were pilot controlled, and helped build out the kind of automatic takeoff and landing of the drones. New payloads and weapons capabilities that were added into the aircraft helped build kind of this, at the time, almost like an iStore for the aircraft, which was helpful for selling to like foreign governments because they didn't want to tell us what they were putting on the plane. So we built this really kind of generic plug and play, meaning they could put anything on there that they wanted and they didn't have to tell us, and then they would have the ability to control whatever they put on that aircraft. Worked a lot with 3-level government agencies as well. And was a great opportunity in that started as a developer. It was my first place out of school. I got to work with a lot of great engineers. A lot of the folks I worked with ended up going to SpaceX. They went to I can't remember, Google's like moonshot projects. I can't remember the name, Google X or whatnot. Running the autonomous vehicle systems at Facebook and Meta, Google, and Amazon. So I got to work with a lot of really great people. And I guess a couple of lessons learned that I had while there. One, I would say, and this always is be curious. You'll hear there's a show. What's it's the soccer coach one. There's a TV show. I'm trying to, anyways, but there's one in this dark section. He's like, be curious, don't be judgmental. It's a really great saying. But this is, as an engineer, there's nothing better than being curious, right? Understanding we don't know how we're building anything, right? It's this desire and belief that we'll figure it out, right? Everyone in here is in computer science group. You're probably considered like the tech person in your family, and like, I don't know, I get this, like my mom hits me up about the computer. I'm not in IT. I don't know how the thing works, right? But let me Google that for you and figure that out. It really is that same skill set that makes you successful as a software engineer. So much of the things we don't know how we're going to build it. That's the whole point. But having that confidence that whether it's a problem, you'll figure it out, you'll troubleshoot it. Whether it's some new capability that you're going to build out, Having that confidence and that you can do that, and the curiousness to kind of like, ooh, I want to understand how that works. Just a huge thing, and to maintain that curiousness through your career. A lot of times, as you get more mature in your career, get more senior, you figure out, you kind of feel like, hey, you know things, right? And you're less like, you get an intern out of school or something like that, and you're like, already, what can I learn from that person? And actually can learn a lot. And so it's just this like kind of humbleness and curiousness that can really help you. Another is like just passion, where being in a passionate environment where people really care and excited about the mission that you're on, is just it's just critical for being able to like kind of reach the goals, the heights that you want to get to. Kind of talking the next one, like dreaming big and coming up a little short. Like you want to reach as far as you can get. If you're reaching your goals, you probably didn't reach far enough. It's better off to reach further than you can and then come up a little bit short, knowing that you gave everything you had, you did everything you could to try to reach it. And that was something I know we did a lot at General Atomics, and it makes it fun. It's not, it's one of those things I try to teach my teams. It's not meeting a goal. It's not a failure, right? It's a failure is giving up. Failure is not reaching your outcome. But and one of the things we really try to protect that I do with my teams, especially like because timelines come up, right? We all know you got this in school, right? But even in the software industry, you got the business always wanting timelines, and it's hard to predict how long something can take. And one of the things really careful of is where we have a lot of hard work put in over several months, and if it's a week late, a day late, a month late, you don't want it to be viewed as a failure. You want it to be viewed as success. It's like we delivered something incredible within this time period, and so it's part of that is being expectations, but it's also like sometimes you don't reach everything that you wanted to in that time. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be gross kind of failures, and those are not good. But like you took 6 months when it should take, things like that. But generally, coming up a little short is not a bad thing. Another one that I think is key, and I know this is one of the tenets that Amazon has in their leadership, is just a willingness to be misunderstood for a period of time, right? A lot of times you have an innovative idea, a new way of doing something, people think you're crazy, and you got to be careful how you communicate these things and how you operate, where you don't kind of almost isolate yourself. But it's you've got to have being comfortable with, hey, I'm kind of misunderstood for a time period of time. I've got this new way, and eventually it adapts. Another, like I say, success makes things really fun. Kind of obvious, but being a part of a company with a lot of rapid growth and success it makes a lot of fun. It's really prevents. There's a lot of problems when you're in an organization that isn't really growing, and there's less opportunity. The only way you're gonna like get that next job is to like take your boss's job or something like that. You got to replace them. It's I don't know. It's just not as fun. And success like kind of solves it. It's like a winning sports team, right? Like you get along with each other better. It just kind of prevents a lot of problems from coming into play. And you can't always get that, but it does make it really fun. We worked really, really hard to get the success we had. A lot of late nights, a lot of weekends, and it was necessary. Like you get, a lot of times they're saying work hard, work smart, work long. Sometimes you need all of them, and that was huge for us. We had we couldn't hire fast enough. We were hiring like 100 people a month, and we just couldn't grow fast enough for all the work that we had, and so we just have to work harder to be able to deliver on what we needed. And it's obviously you want some work-life balance and be able to enjoy your life. You don't want life to be all about work. But it is it definitely was a place that had kind of I would say ups and downs. There's some organizations that, like especially larger companies, where it's a little bit more like just flat, like you work 9 to 5, whatnot, and just do your work. This was definitely more of hey, work really hard for a couple of days, even work a weekend, and then go take the next week off or something like that. And it was do what was needed at the time. And then I think one of the biggest ones, I don't know, just like life in general, I would say is the excitement you get from the idea of success, it needs to be greater than the fear of failure. This is, I think, is something that gets a lot of folks away. I've got a son in baseball, and I remember when he was junior, he wouldn't swing at the ball. He was hoping he'd get walked. He just didn't. He was scared of striking out, and the pitchers weren't very good. He was young. I don't know. He was like 8 years old, and you get walked a lot, and he was just scared of striking out. And you just whether it's a coding change that you're making, a design that you have, the excitement that you get that you're going to be right and be successful has to outweigh this fear of failure. Now, let me do what everyone says I should do here, or I'm not going to follow through on my idea. I was talking with more of a junior engineer on my team just yesterday. She was telling me how she this project she was working on, she had her initial intuition of how to solve this problem, and she didn't have the confidence enough to follow her intuition. She asked some other folks, they gave her a different direction. She ended up having to change the project back to her original direction to get it to work correctly. And it's just a good example where it's sometimes, it's almost like combinations of some of these things of following your intuition, and don't allow fear to drive you, like the fear of failure, fear of not doing something. I did a small stint after, so I left General Atomics, and we worked so much, I would say that when, probably not a positive thing, I'd say, but had my first kid with my wife, and worked enough, and she wanted to move back to family or back to LA to be near family, and it just worked a lot, more so than I'd probably recommend, and so I wanted to get back near family. She'd have some help and kind of just change the environment, but it was a super fun experience. It didn't feel like work, it felt like fun. I think that's one of the beauties when you can love what you do, you feel like what you're doing is having a good impact and things like that. You can feel good. That's always been something important for me, where I feel like doing something that I feel good about, that feels like it's having a better impact in the world. When I came back to LA, did a small stint at a company called TiVo. I don't have it on here. It was Rovi at the time. It used to be Macrovision, then became TiVo. And we did video streaming technology. I'm older, so there was a service before Netflix that was competing. That was Blockbuster. I remember Blockbuster called like Cinema Now. We were building that service. We weren't part of Blockbuster. We were they were OEMing our technology. We also built some technologies to help stream. We call over-the-top technology, or on set-top boxes. So it's actually like really interesting technical challenges, because we would do kind of deep graphics on systems that had really low amount of memory, and we had to do all kinds of tricks to get it to work, to provide like what felt like this kind of next generation experience on these old cable set boxes. But overall, the company, what made me miserable is the company had no passion. We had a bunch of patents, a bunch of I would say kind of garbage patents that made revenue for the company. No, and there just was no passion to be like amazing. They were okay being a C player. Like they didn't care about dominating the market they were in. The stock of the company did extremely well, and they had like a hugely beneficial stock program. So it was a company where if you didn't care what you did, all you cared was like making money. It was a good place to work. Myself, I care more about like the people I work with, what we're doing, what we're accomplishing. To care about money too, but I was miserable. It just was no fun, and I didn't feel like I was growing either. I think that's the other big thing too, right? Is especially early on in your career, you need to maximize your growth, right? And you need to find opportunities that allow you to maximize that growth. You've got to, no matter where you're at, you've got so much to learn. I've got so much to learn, and so being in opportunities that allow you to continue to grow, that challenge you, it's just key. And to that point, I think making sure that you really only grow when you're uncomfortable, right? Is a good reminder. Is if you're comfortable, and this is our tendency, we like to be comfortable. You stagnate more, right? You're just doing the same things. It's comfort. That's why it's comfortable. You know how to do it. But stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing talks, This time, I mean, I'm not great at it, but like I used to hate getting in front of people and talking. I'm an engineer. I'm more of an introverted person. Uh, uh, it's getting out of your comfort zone is so key to your growth. Um, so kind of back, I joined Rapid7. Again, it was a startup when I joined. We had about 100 employees. I was hired as an engineer. Again, back to like stepping out of the comfort zone. In my career, I'd done C#, C++, C. I'd never done Java. That was not a big deal, but then I took this job in Java at a cybersecurity company. Didn't know anything about cybersecurity, and it was a startup. And kind of, I don't know. I think my wife was pregnant at the time, and I remember one of my buddies was like, "Can't believe you're joining the startup." It was the economy was not great at the time, and similar to kind of how we are now. And it was kind of a big jump, right? Just like might not work out well. We're now over 2,500 employees. We did a successful IPO. We continue to kind of have pretty good growth. Again, I started as a developer. My original boss at the time, he was going to go jump on another project, and I had ended up leading some teams at General Atomics. And I guess I can make a point of this. When I went to Rovi, I just joined as a senior developer. I wasn't stuck on like, hey, wherever I go, I need to be a leader again, like a manager or whatnot. I felt like, hey, go in, have an impact, make an impact, and whatever the company needs, I'll do. Whatever. And so at Rovi, I was just a senior engineer. When I got to Rapid7, quickly opened up an opportunity to be a team lead. And I said, hey, when my boss joining another project, asked to kind of take over the team. We had a great team, the one I initially joined at Rapid7. And so I took over that team. Great team. We had a lot of success. So I ended up getting another team and getting another team and getting another team. Ended up running what was our flagship product at the time, Nexpose, which is in vulnerability management. Vulnerability management is basically like you're identifying software installed within environments. So like your laptop, let's say, what kind of vulnerabilities are present on your laptop? Meaning like identifying, hey, if you've got some old version of Java, you're running, I don't know, some vulnerable version of Slack. You're identifying like all the basically really the software, the configuration. You enable, I don't know, some kind of like Bluetooth or USB like connection in there, like identifying the configuration, the software installed on the device to understand what's the potential risk associated with that device. And so that's primarily around vulnerability management. Help kind of take this product that was our flagship and we ended up generating it was about 20 million in revenue up to about 250 million in revenue. Also taking it what we call an on-premise product. So kind of ran inside the customer's environment and then moving that into AWS to be a SaaS product. So it was early days when AWS was just kind of coming out. So we built that product up and now has over 8,000 customers. And it's a B2B, business to business. And I'll get a little bit more on some of our customers and whatnot. But then we started another product in application security and grew that one. Also spent time leading our security research teams. At Rapid7, we lead Metasploit, which is the largest open source kind of security penetration testing tool out there. So it's used by both good and bad hackers for finding weaknesses in environments and in some cases can help take advantage of weaknesses. We also have Velociraptor, which is we call it a digital forensics tool. And then today I took over our cloud security unit. So kind of another example where I like is when I was leading our vulnerability management and application security teams, I had about 250 developers across a lot of locations. And then when I took over cloud security, it was about 30 engineers in one location. And it was, I don't index on the amount of people I manage. To me, it's not a good thing. It's at the end of the day, I look at it as like, if you're getting into management, it's just more people you're responsible for. Like you're not managing people. That's not the way you lead. I'm now responsible for those people. I'm responsible for the career. I'm responsible for helping them make an impact. And so it's a lot of people I think index on the wrong things. They think like how many people, like how I'm important by how many people I manage. And that's not really important. And why I jumped into the cloud security is that's where our biggest growth opportunity was as a company. As we don't know, like cloud is growing. There's not a lot of on-premise data centers that are being built up. And so just this massive cloud security opportunity, and that's what I was excited about. Even though it'd be almost like a smaller responsibility, it was going to be of almost the potential is there to be to be our largest kind of product line and growth line. So that was a lot of what led me to think, oh, that's a better opportunity for me. I actually like smaller teams too as well. That was another reason why I was kind of leaving General Atomics at the time too. I like smaller companies. I like tight-knit teams and less process in general. And you don't always have to have that with a bigger company, but I like you want to do things that make sense. And when they stop making sense, you stop doing them. A good idea 3 years ago, it was a good idea 3 years ago. Today it doesn't make sense. Stop doing it. And so a lot of times in a smaller organization, it's easier to have that agility and flexibility to do that. I will say to Rapid7's credit, we operate like we did as a startup. Very good at not having a lot of red tape, and we don't say like if it's stupid today, it could have been a great idea 3 years ago. We stopped doing it, and it's really good. I think it's really important to find organizations that and opportunities that provide that. Again, some lessons at Rapid7. Be curious. Again, I think it's one of the more important things, especially as an engineer. This is both technical and interpersonal. Be curious. Like if someone has a differing opinion, where's your opinion coming from? Don't just judge hey, that's the wrong thing. It's like, why do you think that? What's going on? Why do you think that's the better implementation, the better solution, the better design? Try to be more empathetic and understanding, and less judgmental. I'd say probably the biggest one for me personally, it was like this: the being right doesn't make you successful. I've had so many. There was a critical decision in Rapid7 at one time where I didn't get I had this idea and we didn't follow through with it. I thought I was right. It really was the right decision. Even the market has shown that it was the right decision, but I was wrong because what I didn't do is I didn't build up the consensus and the alignment for us to execute. So it's not about being right. There aren't things we don't build things. This kind of last point around heroism versus teamwork. We get kind of brought into this hero culture where this one person saves all these things. This one person did this. Elon Musk created SpaceX and Elon Musk created Tesla or Zuckerberg, Facebook. It's there's so much there. It's not that one person. There's a team of people that build stuff, and no one does something by themselves. There is no Rambo in reality, and this is where teamwork is so much more important to accomplish big things, and that's why I say being right doesn't make successful. Actually, getting alignment is better. If you have a team of people and you do the wrong thing, but you're bought into what you're trying to accomplish, you'll make it the right thing. You know what I mean? Oh, first thing didn't work. Hey, let's all get together. Let's reevaluate. Let's go figure this out. If you have even the right decision, but or the right idea, but lack of alignment, then you almost have people almost rooting for the failure, right? And so the first kind of stumbling block that comes up, you're oh, told you, wrong thing, right? And you don't have the backing to make it successful because nothing's ever perfect. Things run into roadblocks, especially you think of architecture and building complex applications. This is super important. You're working with a team of engineers to help build something. Just because you have the right idea, if you can't help people and get them on the same page as you, it's difficult. It's almost impossible to be successful. And if you have everybody aligned with your direction and then you run into a stumbling block, you got people there to help you kind of correct it. And so that again was something, I don't know, for me, it's just been super important because you almost feel hey, if I'm right, this should work. You know what I mean? And it doesn't. And it can be a hard thing to I don't know, for me, it was a hard thing to get over. But I'm right. It doesn't matter. It's at the end of the day, especially for us, our job is to at Rapid7 is to build successful outcomes for our customers. Being right doesn't matter. It's what helps deliver those successful outcomes to our customers, what helps them have, secure their company and secure their environments. And kind of lays into the next, which is, I guess I'll jump down, and how you do things is important as what you do. It's not just about doing the, writing a bunch of code or whatever it might be, just generating a bunch of work. It's how you do it. Is in a way that encourages other people? Is it a way that brings people along with you? Does it, not just not piss people off, right? But they get excited about it. It's like your impact can be so much greater than just the body of work or this output that you deliver. And so that's another, I feel like, has been a kind of a huge lesson for me. And then the middle one, like, I guess, you need to seize the opportunities, not wait for them. Look, every organization, things in your life are different. But I know a lot that I felt is if you sit around waiting and thinking like, oh, I'll get there. It was like a first leadership opportunity I had at Rapid7. Had I not said anything, they would have just hired someone and they would have been the team lead. And I don't know what my career would have been like at Rapid7. I ended up being my original boss. I ended up being his boss later on, like as I went up. But it's had I not asked, I don't know what would have happened. And it's and a lot of times you can feel like, hey, you've earned it, you've done it. But if you don't get what you don't ask for. That being said, a lot of times you don't want to ask for something because you want it. You want to explain how you deserve it, right? And what you've done to get it, and not just, hey, I want to be team lead. It's like, hey, I led teams at my other company. I led teams here. The team really, the team is behind me. The team wants me to lead them. I think I should be the team lead, right? It's not just about what you want. It's showing the justification that you can solve that problem. I got a little bit more to talk about with Rapid7, but I thought I'd stop here if there's any questions or anything I can talk about more. I can see the one question. What do you do with your programming skills in cybersecurity? So I was once a coder. I still code a little bit, but primarily have built in security. There's like builders and breakers. So some people like to take things apart. They like to find the security holes. They like to find what's wrong with things, even like not in necessarily a malicious way. But like, hey, I got a new phone. Is there a way I can, some way I can jailbreak it? Is there, I got a new, electric car. Is there a way I can, display Netflix on the video screen, right? It's not built to do that. And so I think, from what I've seen, primarily I've seen folks have a almost divergent passion. Some people have both, but some, and this is a lot of our researchers, you might call them hackers. They like to break stuff. They like to get a device or play with something and try to find where it has security holes. And then we have, and this is where I sit more on the building side, where I like to build the product that helps prevent against malicious activity or prevent people from, breaking into an organization. That's why I say I feel good about what we do. It helps. A lot of our customers are products I use, my mom uses, and things like that. So like, hey, protect my mom's social security number. And so I've primarily built products around on one side, like I said, the vulnerability management space, which really what I did more work was analyzing the data to help you understand, like as an organization, what are the most critical threats and risks associated? Is it, examples would be you have, an exploitable piece of software deployed all throughout your environment. What we call your publicly exposed assets, so things that are available to be hit on the internet. You think about within an organization, they might have like a VPC, a virtual private private network where you're limiting outside access, but you have these entry points into any network as long as if it's hooked up in the internet, and what are those exposures? So that's where I spent all my time, and a lot of the skills that I had to do was around, I hate saying big data, but larger sets of data, like being able to do analytics on large sums of data to help like identify either patterns. So where we're kind of grouping things that are alike, identifying things like there's a concept called correlation, asset correlation, where if we see your laptop today and then we see it tomorrow, I might have a different IP address in a different environment, a different location, identifying it's the same laptop. When you get disparate pieces of information, trying to correlate them, we call attribute them to this same entity. As an example would be, I see your laptop, and I saw it yesterday, and I see it today, and I can pull things. I can pull your IP address, and I can look up, say, in DHCP logs, that your particular MAC address, right, is what's associated with this IP yesterday, and now with this one today. There might be a firewall log where all I see is your IP address. And so I know that during this time period, that IP address was associated with your laptop, and that was you that made that request out on the web, as an example. So a lot of analysis on that as well. Any other questions before I move on? Hopefully I'm not boring the hell out of everyone. So,
Nah, you're good, man.
So a little about Rapid7, what we do. So we have what we call best-in-class technology products. We do a lot of security services. So we have what we call penetration testers. They basically will go hack organizations. It's kind of like you hire a bad guy, but a burglar to come break into your home to tell you where they would break in, and then you go fix those things. Like, hey, you got a weak window here. This lock is easy to pick. We do the same thing, but kind of a digital solution for organizations where our pen testers they'll sit in the office next door to the client that they're working with and try to get on their Wi-Fi, or even like they'll even do like more social hacking where they'll wear a maintenance outfit and like, hey, I got into your building. I got into your, like, if you have a data center, I got into your closet, or able to hook into something. So they try a bunch of different ways in order to essentially help that organization figure out how, if someone had intent, how they would break into that organization digitally. Research and community. So Rapid7, we're part of what's called the Cyber Threat Alliance, where we share a lot of information that we get into this broader pool. There's a big belief that like cybersecurity as a community, we have to look, but there's more good people than bad people. And so if the good people stick together, it's easier to beat the bad people. It's only when you're kind of siloed where the bad folks win. And so how do we kind of bring, regardless of like even the competitive nature in cybersecurity companies, how do we bring our data and share our data so that we have a bigger advantage? Partner there. I mentioned Metasploit. So Rapid7 had acquired HT Moore. He's a pretty well-known hacker, and created Metasploit, and so we've supported that as an open source tool. Integrate with 300 plus products out in the platform, but 10,000 plus customers, 49% of the Fortune 100. We have a lot of offices all over different countries. A lot of patents. We primarily do patents for, and this is a good thing in any technology, really for defensive purposes. So we've never actually gone after anyone for a patent, but we've actually had people come after us, and then we go, well, we got these ones, and you're violating 5 of those. So do you really want to do that? It's kind of more of a don't do that. We don't. We're a big believer in like let execution win, not the idea. Ideas are easy, execution is hard, and so we really try to build our patent more to defend ourselves, so that if someone comes after us, we can go back after them. Some of our customers. So again, work a lot with a lot of these customers. So we work with small organizations as well, but some very large. And our goal, right? Most of our customers, they're not security companies. And security in a lot of ways can almost be a tax on an organization, right? It's almost like, for a lot of people, it's like annoying. I mean, I think probably in school sometimes some of you have gone through this where it's like was it LA Unified, I think, recently got hacked. Like for the school district for one, but like the second is like, wow, like it's kind of annoying. Like now I got to do some extra step. I got to do multi-factor authentication. I've got to jump onto a VPC to access this machine. It can be annoying. And so a lot of what we're trying to do is lower the security tax for organizations, because that's not what they're trying to do. You know, if you're United Health Group, you're in the medical industry, ExxonMobil, you're oil, like, you know, Nike, you're delivering apparel and other stuff. It's not security. And so what our goal really is to help organizations solve their business problems and take as much of the security burden as possible away from them. And we do this both what we call preventative side. So we identify risks that they have in their environment, and how do they lower their risk posture. We also have detection technologies where we're constantly monitoring the environment to detect when something malicious or an anomaly occurs that potentially could be malicious. So that's where we kind of cross both sides. And I mean, I don't know if it makes sense to go into different products, but so we myriad of different products. Vulnerability management, application security is more around, you know, helping developers find defects. Like the application vulns are typically defects, whereas like, I don't know if you're familiar with cross-site scripting, or cross-site request forgery, but it is where you mistakenly, you know, write some code and it's like a bug that allows someone to take over that application or pull information or hijack that application. And then on inside CloudSec, so what do we do? Primarily, we focus, you know, a lot of organizations are using AWS, they're using GCP, they're using Azure, Alibaba, Oracle Cloud. We help secure the work, like their configuration of the cloud. It's actually one of the more leading breaches that happens today, right? You hear the classic one around some like public S3 bucket where they had a bunch of critical data and someone got access to that bucket. So we help organizations, especially as they moved more of their critical workloads and critical data into the cloud, secure that cloud. There's what's called a shared responsibility model within, if you think about with AWS and the cloud providers. You know, AWS, they kind of handle the hardware underneath, right? Like you don't know, and securing that hardware, but everything that sits on runs on top, you're responsible for. And how you configure the network, you know, security groups like this. This instance can talk to this instance, and this instance can, you know, talk to a load balancer. And that load balancer is open to the world to grab information or to take in requests. Identifying those configurations, so like kind of, you know, I guess explain what we do is we'll find hey, here's an instance running in your cloud that has an exploitable vulnerability, you know, or that's susceptible to an exploitable vulnerability. Attached to that instance is an IAM role, right? Identity. If you assume everyone's somewhat familiar with identity in AWS, but basically tells you what you have access to, and an overly permissive role, meaning it has access to more things than it should. And it might have access to an S3 bucket that has critical data inside of it. And so that exploitable vulnerability has basically given an attacker the ability to, you know, get on that particular machine, and then get access to, so like I say, an S3 bucket that wasn't exposed to the internet, but was actually tightly, and grab the information and exfiltrate the information out of there. So those are kind of the steps that we kind of prevent. XDR and SIM is more on the detection response side. So that's constantly monitoring all of the signals in your environment to identify where you actually have an active threat or detect something malicious. And then it helps also in the response to be able to investigate what exactly had happened. Threat intelligence. So this is a recent acquisition we did about a year or so ago in a company called Insights, and they're based in Tel Aviv. What they do is grab a bunch of publicly identifiable information constantly. So scouring the web, they scour the dark web. to identify, as an example, hey, your credit card number is for sale. And so they'll identify that. They will identify where potentially credentials for a particular organization are for sale. And we actually end up, what we do is we buy large swaths of that information. Like one of our, you don't want to buy the credentials for a particular organization because it'll kind of reveal that you're buying that for to protect them. So what we end up doing is buying large swaths. We actually have goes through a lot of different hops, and we have these entities that basically buy information on the dark web, and in order for us to take it away, and that helps secure our customers. So it's a pretty complex process, but and I mentioned we do a lot of the services. We do where we help advise companies on how to build secure services and what's their program maturity. And then on the orchestration automation front, that is if this then that. It's more of this orchestration tool where you're able to create complex workflows. So as an example, user logs into their laptop and sends executes what looks like to be a malicious command. I want to trigger a Slack notification to someone on the InfoSec team to take a look at that. They'd say that's malicious. They shut down that person's laptop. You can create these automated workflows that are quite complex. And then I won't go too much. We have a large number of open source and free tools available. So Metasploit for penetration testing. Project Sonar is something we actually work with the University of Michigan. So it scans the entire internet all the time, and is pulling up information constantly around. And this information is free. You can get access to it. There's another one, Shodan is another great one to go and do it. What this helps is when one of the use cases is our researchers might find a vulnerability on, I don't know, a certain TV, let's just say some Samsung TV. And what that data can help is show how widespread that and what the impact of that vulnerability is before we even announce it. They'll find it and ooh, how bad is this? And to kind of help advise the producer of that TV, you better get that fix out. There's 1 million TVs exposed to the internet that have this vulnerability that could turn on the camera on the TV or whatever, and people can watch people in their living rooms, things like that. So a lot of that data is used to kind of understand the prevalence of a certain risk, and then it's also used, and we help organizations understand what does their company look like from an outside perspective, because it's all publicly freely collected information, and so you can quickly know hey, here's what you look like. It's almost like when you drive around on the street, right? You're allowed to drive on the street, most streets, and kind of taking pictures or viewing people's houses, and you get this perspective of what does your organization look like digitally from the outside. Project Heisenberg, again, this is data that's freely available. It's a bunch of honeypots. We worked with all the major ISPs and cloud providers, so we have these deployed all throughout the world. And what it's doing is, if you're familiar with a honeypot, we create a device that really can look like anything. And so it looks really attractive to attackers. And so they will send attacks or try to grab something ooh, that's a, as I mentioned, that's a TV that has all these vulnerabilities. Let me go try to attack it. And so what it does is it's much more than that, but it creates the exactly kind of honeypots for attackers, and it helps us understand what type of attacks are being tried right now and where. Also, at times, what we can see is the commands that get sent there help us identify who they're trying to attack, and as well, because we can see ooh, this is your approach, this is what you're trying. So it becomes very good information for our kind of detection and response engineers. But again, both those are open source projects that you can have access to the data from those. And there's quite a bit. I didn't create the list, but excuse me, some more. There's a massive amount of open source projects within the security domain that are like free to use, easy to use. If you have interest in cybersecurity, are good to just kind of play around with. I think Metasploit is one. There's one called Trivi that's built by a competitor of ours, Aquasec. I can send out a list, Garrett, if that would be helpful. Just a lot, whether it's in cloud security, whether it's in endpoint security, laptop security. There's so many freely available tools to kind of play around with and I guess kind of like tease your curiosity and hunger if it's something of interest. And that was, I guess I'll stop and see if there's any other questions or anything. And again, thank you for everyone listening to me.
Yeah, thank you very much as well for giving this whole presentation and, you know, about yourself, and also a nice comprehensive overview of all the cybersecurity related stuff you guys do at the company. Oh, what happened? What happened?
The show.
Oh, it didn't shut off?
The whole thing show.
I didn't touch anything. I think it was just the display. Hold on. Oops. Yeah, just a little bit of an unexpected technical difficulty. Our projector shut off. Just give me 1 second. How did that happen? He has a LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell people to connect with him. Bro, what happened?
Is he still in the meeting?
Yeah, like he's still in the meeting, but hold on. Let me see if I can do this.
That's weird.
I'll just PC screen. 1 second.
I don't know about that place.
Now I can't hear anything.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I think
No. Yeah.
I
Okay.
can briefly hear you now. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, our projector shut off, so then I couldn't hear you. But yeah, I guess some people have class now at 1, which is in 1 minute from now. But I'll tell everyone to they can connect with you on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay, yeah,
happy.
so, we'll put a LinkedIn in our We'll put your LinkedIn in our announcements, and then also maybe if some people want to refer back to the slides, you can send over the slides to us.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah. So yeah, you could probably just email Garrett the slides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or whatever else you want to send,
yeah.
like any links or anything like that.
You got it.
All right, yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for coming to speak with us. And yeah, we hope you have a good rest of your day, good rest of your week, and continue with the success of the company.
I appreciate it, guys. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
I too. Bye.